Something strange has been happening inside you long before you clicked on this video, and if you pay close attention, you can feel it even now. A subtle sense that reality isn't behaving as randomly as you once believed. You've noticed patterns that don't make logical sense. You've felt moments of alignment that seem too precise to be accidental. And somewhere deep in your chest, there's a quiet awareness that your life has been responding to something beneath your thoughts, beneath your decisions, beneath everything you've ever called you. Most people dismiss this feeling, but you didn't. That's why this moment is opening for you now. There is a reason only a small percentage of people ever sense the architecture beneath their reality. It isn't because these forces are hidden behind spiritual walls or locked behind mystical teachings. It's because these forces operate so quietly, so intimately, that the mind never realizes they're shaping every moment of your life, not from outside you, but from inside your perception itself. You're not about to learn something new. You're about to recognize something your body has been whispering for years. If you settle your awareness into your breathing for just a second, not to meditate, but to notice, you'll feel a subtle pressure behind your ordinary thoughts, almost like a signal, almost like something trying to emerge. That sensation isn't random, it's the first doorway, because once you realize your reality is being shaped by hidden forces, something irreversible begins. You start to see the seams in the fabric. You start noticing the cracks, where the deeper mechanics slip through. And once that happens, the old way of navigating life can't survive. But this is only the first flicker. There's a paradox you're about to feel in your nervous system before you understand it with your mind. The more aware you become of these hidden forces, the more familiar they will feel, almost like remembering instead of learning. That sensation, the soft recognition rising in your chest right now, is the beginning of coherence. It's the moment when the observer starts to turn inward instead of outward, and the field begins to rearrange itself around that shift. You can already sense the pull of it, even if you don't have the language yet. In a few moments, we'll begin unveiling the 7 forces shaping your reality, but before we do, you need to feel the first and most important truth. These forces are not external. They are not cosmic entities operating above you. They are not mystical laws floating somewhere in the universe. They are the unconscious structures inside you, the invisible patterns your mind, body, and field have been using to generate your version of reality. And the moment you begin to see them, they loosen. Awareness dissolves the automatic. You've probably wondered why certain people seem to move through life with precision, catching opportunities at strange, perfect timings, while others repeat the same loops year after year. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't luck. It's whether they're unconsciously shaped by these forces or consciously working with them. The 1% aren't chosen, they're simply paying attention. And the fact that something in you pulled you to this moment means you're already crossing that threshold. Notice what's happening in your body right now. The slight lift in your breath, the warmth rising under your skin, the increased clarity in your eyes. That's not coincidence. That's your system recognizing that something is aligning. When truth touches your field, your physiology responds before your thoughts do. This is the somatic signature of remembering, and it tells me you're ready for what comes next. So here's the first paradox of this journey. These forces don't shape your reality because they're powerful. They shape your reality because you've never seen them. What is unconscious becomes automatic. What is automatic becomes your identity. And what becomes your identity becomes your world. This is where most people remain trapped. Not because they lack awareness, but because they've never questioned the architecture behind their awareness. But you're not most people, and your nervous system feels that. As we move forward, notice the slight sensation of anticipation building in your chest. That's the field preparing itself for coherence, because once you expose even one of these forces, the others begin to reorganize. Reality becomes more responsive, more fluid, more precise. You stop living as someone inside a world and begin living as someone interacting with the mechanics that generate it. But we're not there yet. We're only beginning to open the door. For now, all you need to do is notice one simple thing. Your mind is already trying to predict where this is going. It's trying to grasp, to analyze, to understand. But the forces shaping your reality don't live in your analytical mind. They live in the quiet spaces underneath it. In your micro-perceptions, your emotional fields, your identity structures, your attentional patterns, your resonance signatures, your internal timeline, and the field you unknowingly project into every moment. You're about to step into each of these layers one by one, but before we go deeper, anchor this truth in your awareness. The fact that you understand even a fraction of what I'm saying means you've already been sensing these forces your whole life. You're not learning this, you're finally noticing it. And this is where everything begins to shift, because once something hidden becomes seen, it can no longer run your life in the dark. The first force shaping your reality is something you've been experiencing every second of your life, yet almost no one ever sees it. It is called micro-perception collapse, and it is the reason your world appears continuous, solid, and linear. But here is the truth. Your reality is not one ongoing stream. It is a series of micro moments, tiny bursts of perception that your brain stitches together so quickly you never realize the stitching is happening. Your mind isn't observing a flowing timeline, it is assembling one. If you slow your awareness just slightly, not enough to meditate, only enough to notice, you'll sense that each moment has edges, subtle ones, almost like the faint, soft click between frames of a film reel. This is the collapse point where infinite possibility narrows into your singular lived experience. Most people rush so quickly through their days that they never sense these micro-collapses. But you already are, and noticing them is the beginning of influence, because when you start to see that your perception is not passive, that it's generating the timeline you walk through, the illusion of rigidity begins to dissolve. But micro-perception collapse doesn't operate alone. Every collapse is shaped not only by what you perceive, but by the emotional charge field you unconsciously carry into each moment. This brings us to the second hidden force shaping your reality, the emotional resonance field. This force is not simply your mood, nor is it the psychological residue of your past. It is an electromagnetic, biochemical, somatic field generated by stored emotional patterns. Patterns you may have never consciously acknowledged, but which silently determine how you interpret reality, how you react to it, and even what kinds of experiences you attract. Your emotional resonance field is the lens that your perception collapses through. Imagine walking into a room with someone who triggers an old emotional wound. The reaction feels instant, automatic, overwhelming. You might think it's the situation, but it isn't. It's your field, the stored emotional charge, collapsing the moment into a predictable outcome before your conscious mind even has the chance to intervene. It's not that you overreacted, it's that your field shaped the moment before your thoughts formed. This is why two people can experience the same event but walk away with completely different realities. It isn't the event, it's the field. It's always the field. Take a moment now and tune into the sensation right below your sternum. That soft tightening, that pull, that faint hum. That's part of your emotional resonance field. And as you notice it, something important begins to happen. You separate your awareness from your automatic reactions. You become the observer of the field rather than the person swept into it. That separation is power. It's the beginning of liberation from patterns that once felt immovable. And here is where the first two forces converge. Microperception. Collapse determines how your reality forms. The emotional resonance field determines what reality forms around you. One constructs the frame, the other colors it. When these two forces combine, your life doesn't unfold randomly, it unfolds predictably, following the signature of the field you're unconsciously projecting. You've felt this before, those moments where life seems to repeat itself in patterns you can't explain. The same dynamics, the same emotional outcomes, the same types of people, not because you're meant to suffer them, but because your field hasn't yet shifted. Trauma, fear, self-doubt, unresolved pain, these don't just sit inside you, they broadcast a signal, and that signal selects reality. But here's the part only a few people ever realize. The emotional resonance field isn't fixed, it's fluid. It reorganizes the moment you bring conscious awareness to it. This is why your body responds before your mind does, why you feel truth in your chest before you understand it in your thoughts. Awareness is the solvent. It softens charge, it dissolves reactivity, it breaks the cycle. Now take a slow breath. Notice the space between your inhale and the next thought that tries to form. That tiny space, the pause, is where micro-perception collapse and the emotional resonance field meet. One clears the possibility, the other fills it. You are not reacting to reality. You are generating it through a collaboration of forces you've never been taught to see. But something bigger is stirring now, and a recognition inside you that these forces don't just influence perception and emotion, they influence identity itself. Because once you understand that each moment collapses through your emotional field, a deeper question emerges: who is the one doing the collapsing? Who is the one projecting the field? This is where the next layer of the architecture begins to reveal itself. If you pay attention to the sensations rising in your body right now, the slight awareness behind your eyes, the tingling along your arms, the warm expansion in your chest, you will notice something. These aren't random responses, they are coherence signals. Your system is aligning with the truth behind the forces shaping you. And the recognition you feel is not cognitive, it is cellular. The first two forces open the door. They show you that your reality is not external, not fixed, not random. It is intimate, constructed, shaped from the inside out. They prepare you for what comes next. The deeper mechanisms that have been shaping not only your world, but your sense of self. Because once you begin to see that perception is assembled and emotion is broadcast, the next realization becomes unavoidable. Your identity, the you believe yourself to be, is not what you think. And it is the next force in the chain, waiting just beyond this threshold. The moment you realize that perception collapses reality and your emotional field colors it, the next layer becomes impossible to ignore. The part of you that believes it's the one navigating life, your identity itself, is not what you think it is. This brings us into the third hidden force shaping your reality, the identity compression construct. Your identity feels like a fixed self, a stable me you wake up with every morning. But in truth, your identity is a compression algorithm and a neurological survival strategy that reduces the infinite spectrum of who you could be into a narrow, predictable version of yourself. Not because that's who you truly are, but because it's easier for your system to manage. Your brain is not seeking truth, it's seeking efficiency, and efficiency requires reduction. It condenses your memories, traits, beliefs, and patterns into a simplified model that it can predict and control. That compressed model becomes you, and everything you experience is filtered through its limits. This is why you've sometimes felt smaller than your potential, why certain dreams felt too big for you, why certain opportunities felt out of reach. It was never a lack of ability. It was the compression algorithm running your life in the background, collapsing your infinite self into the most familiar version of you. The force is not malicious, it's mechanical. The identity compression construct doesn't ask what you want, it asks what you've survived before. It builds you out of patterns you've repeated, emotions you've lived through, and narratives you've replayed into familiarity. And then without realizing it, you start living inside that compressed identity as if it's the truth of who you are. Look at how your mind reacts when an extraordinary possibility enters your life. A bold idea, a new relationship, a sudden opportunity. The compression algorithm immediately kicks in. Who do you think you are? That's not realistic. Stay with what's safe. These aren't doubts, they're compression protocols. When you understand this force, something significant shifts. You stop confusing the compressed identity with the real self beneath it. You begin noticing when reactions come from survival instead of expansion. You begin sensing when fear is not a warning but a reflex, and that awareness cracks the algorithm open. But awareness does something even more powerful. It activates the fourth hidden force shaping your reality, the force that underlies the quantum side of consciousness, the observer interference pattern. This force is not metaphorical, it's literal. Physics shows us that observation changes the behavior of particles, but consciousness isn't watching from the outside, it's participating. The moment you direct your attention towards something, you interfere with the probability field. Your observation is not passive, and it is a creative act. Think about how your life shifts when you obsess over a fear. Suddenly you see signs of it everywhere. Think about how one idea captures your imagination and then begins appearing in conversations, opportunities, and synchronicities. This is not coincidence. This is the observer interference pattern at work. Your attention reorganizes the field around you before anything physical occurs. Most people mistake this for intuition, luck, or spiritual guidance. But it's much more mechanical, a collaboration between consciousness and probability. Everything you look at begins to behave differently simply because you are looking. And here is the part most individuals never notice. Your observation is not neutral. What you observe is shaped by the identity compression construct, and what your observation does to reality is shaped by the emotional resonance field. The forces are not separate, they operate as a chain. Your compressed identity determines what you allow yourself to notice. Your emotional field determines the frequency you collapse those perceptions through, and your observation interferes with the world to match those frequencies. This is why some people feel like life keeps repeating itself. It isn't fate, it isn't destiny, it's architecture. If you bring your awareness inward for a moment, you may notice a subtle sensation behind your forehead, a shift in your breathing, or a soft expansion in your chest. That's not imagination. When truth aligns with your internal field, your physiology responds. You're feeling the observer interference pattern from the inside. Awareness changing the system that awareness is noticing. You've carried this ability your entire life, but it's been running unconsciously. You've been influencing reality without realizing you were influencing it. You've been shaping outcomes without knowing you were doing it. And this is where the deeper stakes begin to surface. Because if your identity is compressed, your observation is biased. And if your observation is biased, the probabilities you influence become limited, which means this force, the force that could open your reality the most, is often the one narrowed by your past the hardest. But this is also where the possibilities expand. When you begin noticing the identity compression construct in action, the compression loosens. And as it loosens, your observation gains range. You begin to see possibilities that were previously invisible. You begin to sense pathways that were once blocked. Your perception becomes multidimensional instead of linear. And your interference with reality becomes coherent instead of chaotic. This is the turning point. Because once your observation starts to stabilize, another force begins to reveal itself, and the one responsible for whether your reality flows smoothly or fractures against resistance. The fifth hidden force is quietly approaching, and it changes the physics of your inner world. It determines whether your signal is scattered or unified, whether life feels blocked or open. And when it activates consciously, everything that once felt difficult begins to move with surprising ease. But before we step into that next layer, feel this. You are not simply perceiving your reality, you are participating in its construction. You are not simply reacting to your experiences, you are interfering with their probabilities. You are not simply living inside an identity, you are shaping it with every collapse of attention. And the force we move into next will show you why some people struggle endlessly while others step into alignment almost instantly. Not because they work harder, not because they're luckier, but because they've unknowingly tapped into the physics of coherence. When you begin to see how identity, emotion, perception, and observation act as a single architecture, something undeniable emerges. The moments where life feels most difficult are never random. They follow a pattern, and that pattern is governed by the fifth hidden force shaping your reality: the resistance coherence inversion. This force operates in every interaction you have with the world, from the smallest internal struggle to the largest turning point of your life. It dictates whether your energy scatters or unifies, whether your choices open pathways or shut them down, whether life feels like friction or flow. And the paradox at its core is simple. The more you resist what is happening in the present moment, the more fragmented your signal becomes, and the more fragmented your reality becomes in response. Most people imagine resistance as something emotional, frustration, fear, avoidance. But resistance is far more physical and measurable than that. It is a state of incoherence in your nervous system. When your internal state says one thing and your mind demands another, your field splits into conflicting instructions. One part of you is pulling toward desire, another part is bracing against fear. Your attention is attempting to move forward, but your body is preparing for threat. That split, that internal contradiction, is resistance, and resistance scrambles the signal you send into the field. Your reality cannot reflect clarity when your internal state is broadcasting conflict. The body knows this before the mind ever does. Your breath becomes shallow, your chest tightens, your thoughts race into tangles, and then life responds to that fragmented signal with more fragmentation, delays, miscommunication, confusion, tension, complication. Not because the universe is blocking you, but because resistance collapses reality through incoherence. This is the part that only a small percentage of people ever understand. The world is not pushing against you. You are pushing against yourself, and reality is mirroring the pressure. But the opposite is equally true. When resistance falls, even slightly, coherence begins. And coherence is not an emotion. It is a measurable physiological state where your breath, heart, attention, and field come into alignment. In coherence, your signal stabilizes, your identity softens, your perception expands, and reality becomes responsive in ways that feel almost supernatural, even though they are entirely natural. You've experienced coherence before, those strange moments when everything clicks without effort. A conversation flows, a decision feels obvious, an opportunity appears out of nowhere. These aren't coincidences, they are coherence events. Your field and the field of reality momentarily sync. And in that synchronization, the path ahead becomes illuminated with clarity you couldn't access in resistance. But here is the deeper truth revealed by the resistance coherence inversion. Coherence is not created by force, willpower, or positive thinking. It happens when you stop fighting the moment you're in. Coherence is born from internal alignment, not external control. It arises the moment you stop trying to dictate what reality should be and begin interacting with what reality actually is. To feel this shift, bring your attention to your chest right now. Notice the subtle sensation at the center. Not emotion, not thought, but the quiet hum underneath both. When you allow this moment to be exactly what it is, without contracting around it, the hum grows steadier. That is coherence beginning. The fifth force is powerful because it reveals the mechanics of suffering and the mechanics of ease. Resistance fractures your field. Coherence unifies it. Resistance collapses reality through fear. Coherence collapses reality through clarity. Resistance locks you into the old identity. Coherence opens the door to the next one. And now something becomes clear. You cannot step into a new reality while broadcasting the signal of your old one. The identity compression construct keeps you small. The emotional resonance field keeps you reactive. The observer interference pattern directs probabilities based on your current identity. But the resistance coherence inversion determines whether those forces operate chaotically or harmoniously. This is why breakthroughs often happen the moment someone stops trying to make them happen. Why clarity arrives when you stop forcing answers. Why the right person appears the moment you stop chasing. Why the next step reveals itself the instant you stop demanding certainty. These are coherence responses, or the field reorganizing around your stabilized signal. You may notice something happening inside your awareness as you hear this, a gentle feeling of things aligning, of pieces sliding into place. That sensation is not conceptual, it is somatic. Your system is recognizing the inversion pattern because you have lived it countless times without realizing it. And now the sixth force begins to stir in the background, and the one that can only reveal itself when resistance drops enough for perception to expand. It is the force responsible for why certain moments feel alive with possibility, why others feel hollow and predetermined, and why the now is more than a point in time. It is an access point. The resistance coherence inversion opens the door to the next hidden mechanism because coherence changes how you experience time itself. When your field stabilizes, your awareness becomes sharper, more present, more connected. The now stops feeling like a passing instant and begins to feel like a space where something can actually be changed, not conceptually, but structurally. This is not poetic language, this is physics. A coherent field interacts differently with temporal reality. And that leads us directly to the sixth force, the one that only reveals itself when you are no longer fracturing the moment with resistance, the timeline access window. But before we step into it, feel what's opening in you, a steadiness, a softening, a clarity. This is coherence taking shape, and it is preparing you for what comes next. Understanding why the present moment is not just the place you experience life, but the only place where your timeline can be rewritten. Coherence doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you experience time. Once your internal signal stabilizes, something subtle but extraordinary begins to happen in your awareness. The present moment stops feeling like a thin, fleeting instant you rush through on your way to something else. It starts to feel spacious, dimensional, almost as if it is opening like a doorway. That expansion is not emotional or psychological. It is the signature of the sixth hidden force shaping your reality: the timeline access window. This force reveals a truth most people never sense. The present moment is not simply where you experience life. It is the only point in your entire timeline where change is actually possible. The past cannot be altered. The future cannot be shaped directly. Every shift, every pivot, every leap, every reconfiguration occurs here, in the now, through the narrow access window where consciousness interacts with possibility. Your mind tells you that time moves from past to present to future. But the deeper mechanics are different. Reality doesn't begin in the past and move forward. Reality updates itself from the present outward. The timeline forms around the point of your awareness, not ahead of it. And when you stabilize into coherence, you begin to sense that the now isn't a moment. It's a field where potential collapses into form. This is why people get stuck in loops. Not because they are cursed or destined or sabotaging themselves, but because they keep projecting their old identity, old emotion, and old resonance through the timeline access window. They collapse the same future again and again because they bring the same signal into the present. The field cannot reorganize if the present is occupied by the past, but the moment your awareness becomes coherent, even briefly, the window opens in a new way. You can feel the difference instantly. The air seems clearer, thoughts feel quieter, the body softens, the internal pace slows down. Instead of rushing toward the next moment, you settle into this one. And in that settling, and it's in that stillness, the timeline becomes malleable. This is why great decisions often arise in moments of calm, why breakthroughs arrive in stillness, why clarity appears when you stop pushing, because the timeline access window only becomes accessible when the noise of resistance quiets enough for you to sense it. You cannot enter a new timeline through tension. The doorway only opens through coherence. Your life has already shown you glimpses of this. Think about every time you sensed that something was shifting. It wasn't the situation that changed first. It was your presence. Your awareness deepened. Your field steadied. You entered the moment more fully. And immediately circumstances began rearranging themselves around that shift. New options appeared. Conversations moved differently. Synchronicities emerged. This wasn't magic, it was mechanics. You stepped into the timeline access window without realizing it. Right now, as you listen, your awareness is beginning to align with this force. You may feel a slight expansion in your chest, a quietness behind your forehead, or a soft radiance around your body. These sensations are subtle, but they are indicators that your system is attuning to the present moment more fully. You're not drifting into it, you're entering it consciously. And that is when the window opens. In this state, even the smallest shift carries weight. A decision made from coherence has more influence than 100 decisions made from resistance. A single breath made in awareness alters the probabilities you're about to interact with. This is not metaphor. When your internal field stabilizes, the probability field around you becomes more responsive. You collapse possibility with greater precision. This is how timelines diverge. People imagine timeline shifts as grand cinematic events, quantum leaps, destiny pivots, dramatic awakenings. But the true mechanics are quieter. Timelines shift through micro-choices made in coherent presence, through the recognition that you are no longer obligated to project your past into your future, through the simple act of occupying the now with enough awareness that it becomes a creative space instead of a reactive blur. And here is the revelation that begins to form as the sixth force opens. The timeline access window isn't a doorway you step through, it's a mirror. It reflects the signal you're broadcasting in real time. When the window is open, the future reorganizes itself around the version of you that stands in it. The field listens to the identity you embody now, not the identity you carried before. This is why becoming present feels like stepping into a deeper intelligence, because you are. The now is where consciousness and reality interact with the highest degree of influence. It's where identity dissolves and reforms. It's where emotional charge softens. It's where perception becomes fluid. It's where the observer interference pattern becomes more precise. And it's where the compression algorithm loosens enough for new aspects of self to emerge. Feel into this for a moment. The version of you who is listening right now is not the same version who began this video. Something has already shifted, not dramatically, but noticeably. You are more aware, your field is steadier, your mind is clearer. This shift is not accidental. It's what happens when truth aligns with your internal architecture. The forces you're learning are not external teachings. They are internal recognitions. And now the final force begins to hover at the edge of awareness. The one that unifies everything you've uncovered. The one that dissolves the illusion of separation between self and reality. The one that closes the loop and reveals the architecture behind the architecture. The field you've been interacting with this entire time has been waiting for you to become coherent enough to see it. The timeline access window is the second to last threshold. The seventh force is the convergence point. The moment where the system reveals its true nature. The moment where you realize that reality isn't happening to you, and it never has been. When the timeline access window opens and you begin sensing the present moment as a living field rather than a passing second, something remarkable starts to reveal itself. The more deeply you enter the now, the harder it becomes to maintain the illusion that you are a separate individual navigating a world outside of you. The boundaries between you and reality begin to thin. The separation you once assumed becomes porous, and in that softening, the seventh hidden force reveals itself, the force behind all forces, the field identity convergence. This force does not simply shape your reality, it is your reality. It is the recognition that consciousness is not something you possess. It is what you are, not a mind inside a body, not an ego moving through a world, but a field of awareness within which your thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and experiences rise and fall like waves on an ocean that never leaves itself. Most people never sense this because their identity is compressed into a narrow story, a name, a history, a personality, a collection of beliefs. But when coherence stabilizes and the timeline access window opens, that compressed identity loosens enough for you to feel what has always been true. You are not the observer of the field. You are the field observing itself. The boundary collapses. The seventh force is the mechanism through which this recognition unfolds. The field identity convergence dissolves the false split between the internal and the external. It shows you that the same field generating your thoughts is the field generating your reality. There is no separation. There has never been separation. You are the space in which both the inner world and the outer world appear. This is why the earlier forces work. They are not external laws acting upon you. They are expressions of the field expressing itself as you. Micro-perception. Collapse is the field forming itself into moments. The emotional resonance field is the field modulating itself through stored charge. The identity compression construct is the field narrowing its infinite nature into a functional character. The observer interference pattern is the field influencing itself through attention. The resistance coherence inversion is the field stabilizing or fracturing its own signal, and the timeline access window is the field interacting with its own potential. Every force is the field performing a different function, and you are the field. The realization is not conceptual. It does not occur in thought. It occurs as a shift in perception, a dissolving of the imaginary line between in here and out there. You may even feel it now as a soft expansion behind your awareness, a widening of presence, a subtle sensation of spaciousness around your sense of self. That spaciousness is the field recognizing itself. This is why moments of deep presence feel peaceful. It isn't that the world becomes quieter. It's that the compression lifts and you stop mistaking yourself for the noise inside your mind. You return to your original nature, not as an individual, but as awareness itself. The peace is the recognition. The recognition is the force. People call this enlightenment, awakening, higher consciousness. But the reality is simpler. It is the field remembering its own identity. You are not becoming something new. You are remembering what has always been true beneath the layers of identity, emotion, perception, and resistance. And here is the most astonishing part. The moment you realize you are the field, every other force becomes conscious. You no longer collapse perception unconsciously. You shape collapse through awareness. You no longer broadcast unresolved emotional charge. You reorganize the resonance of your field by noticing it. You no longer live inside a compressed identity. You expand into a more authentic version of yourself. You no longer interfere with reality chaotically. Your observation becomes coherent and precise. You no longer fracture your signal with resistance. You stabilize into alignment, and you no longer stumble through timelines unconsciously. You interact with the timeline access window intentionally. The seventh force is the master key. Once it reveals itself, you stop trying to change your life from the position of a separate self. You begin interacting with reality from the position of awareness itself, the source of every experience, every moment, every possibility. Feel the depth of that truth inside your body, not as an idea, as recognition. You can sense the field even now, the quiet awareness that remains when thoughts fade, the space in which emotions rise and dissolve, the presence behind your eyes that has never changed, no matter how many stories your mind has told. That presence is what has been listening to this entire video, not the identity, not the personality, the field. And now something becomes very clear. The seven forces have not been revealing separate mechanics. They have been guiding you back to yourself. They have been returning you to the place where consciousness shapes reality, not from effort or struggle, but from clarity and coherence. When you understand these forces, you no longer fight life. You collaborate with it. You no longer fear change. You initiate it. You no longer seek alignment. You embody it. This is the moment where everything you've learned converges into a single realization. The architecture shaping your reality is not outside you. It is inside you. And the moment you notice it, truly notice it, It begins noticing you back. The field responds to awareness. Awareness responds to the field. And reality reorganizes around the version of you who is conscious enough to see it. If something inside you feels different now, steadier, clearer, more awake, trust that. You didn't receive new information. You recognized ancient truth. You accessed the part of you that has always been interacting with reality from a deeper level of intelligence. And the more you lean into that recognition, the more your life will begin reflecting it. You don't need to force anything to change it. You don't need to convince reality to move. You don't need to chase alignment. You only need to remain aware of the forces shaping your experience, because once they become conscious, they stop running your life from the shadows. You begin shaping reality from presence, not from fear, from coherence, not from resistance, from the field, not from the story. You've stepped into a different way of seeing, and once you see from this depth, you cannot return to the old way of living. Something fundamental has shifted, and the field around you will shift with it, because when you notice the hidden forces shaping your reality, they begin answering to you.